So this is part 3 of the Buddha Dharma series. So far in this series, we've looked at the first noble truth, where Buddha was telling us that there is this suffering, this discontentment, this dissatisfaction, some anxiety, a feeling that things are not quite right. And this type of feeling runs from our birth, and if we don't do anything about it, goes all the way to our death. Then in the second noble truth, he spoke about some of the causes, and we looked at 3 of those causes, the 3 poisons, where we were looking at anger and aversion. We were looking at unawareness and clinging desires, just to name 3. Of course, there are more causes of our suffering. And here, remember, the suffering I'm mostly talking about is emotional suffering. So if you look at those 2 noble truths, then you think, well, that's a little bit negative. There's not a lot of optimism in that. But actually, it's not negative, it's just being realistic that these things are there. We do have this suffering going throughout our lives, and the causes of that are there. But now we come to the third noble truth, and this is where we get first bit of our good news. The Buddha says in the third noble truth that there is a cessation of this suffering. So we can actually bring this suffering to an end, or even if we don't bring it to an end, we can certainly start to reduce that suffering in our life. So this third noble truth gives us hope that, yeah, okay, we have a bit of suffering in our lives, and we have all these causes, this anger and aversion and our clinging desires and attachment and all these things. But actually, I have hope that I can deal with those. I can let those go. I can change the way I look upon life, the way I act in life. And by doing that, we can slowly start to reduce that suffering. So this is nothing mystical or mythical or magical here. It's just a reality that if we put in a good amount of effort, then we'll be able to help ourselves through this suffering in life. And there's the key. We put in a good amount of effort. So if you're going to put in a little amount of effort, you're going to get a little result, aren't you? But if you put in, a big amount of effort, you're going to get a big result. You're going to get a big change in your life. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for big changes in the life. So the third noble truth is that we can start to put an end to this suffering. So that doesn't make us a saint or enlightened or anything like that. It just means that we, as a human being, can start to reduce the suffering in this life. And by reducing my suffering, I automatically reduce the suffering of those people around me. So it's not a selfish goal, this. It's that if I do this, I will start acting in a much more compassionate, kind and skillful way. And when I do that, of course, then I'm helping other people. So this is the third noble truth, the hope. We have hope. We can do this. We can get through all this suffering in our life. That really is a bit of good news, really. So how do we do that? So then that's where we get to the fourth noble truth. So the fourth noble truth is how we can start changing our lives by following this Eightfold Path. And by changing our lives, it reduces our suffering and the suffering of people around us or the people we come into contact with. So first of all, Buddha told us there was a problem. Then he told us the causes of the problem. Then he said we can actually deal with this problem. And the fourth noble truth is how we deal with this problem. So most of the time people split the Four Noble Truths into right or correct. So right view or correct view, right speech or correct speech. So I think both of those words are not really, it's not that it's wrong. I mean, you know, saying it's a right view or something, I don't think that's quite correct. I think what we need, a better way of looking at it is like skillful view or wise, a wise and skillful view, wise and skillful speech. I think this is a much, you know, more understandable way of looking at this Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path is split into three different aspects, and today we'll look at the first aspect. And the first aspect covers view and intention. So wise and skillful view and wise and skillful intentions. So let's look at the view. So what is this wise and skillful view we should be having? Well, we should be seeing the world as it is and not seeing it as we wish it to be or as we think it should be or think it is. So when we have this unskillful view, we're not really seeing life as it is, and this is going to cause suffering to you and other people. And you know, if we start along this path of the Eightfold Path with an incorrect view, then it's going to take us in a wrong direction. So we need to start off with the right view. We need to be heading in the right direction. And that's what this skillful and wise view is all about. It's about putting us in the right direction. So, first of all, the first part of this is that we really understand the Four Noble Truths and we implement them. This is what's going to become a wise view for us. We see life as suffering. You see, if we don't see life as suffering, if we don't notice that suffering going through our life, then we're not going to try and do anything about it. It's like when we're sick. If we don't know we're sick, we're not going to go to the doctor. So here, we know the first noble truth is that we know that we're sick. The second is we've gone to the doctor, we found out that this is the cause of our sickness. The doctor has given us the good news, he can cure us. And the fourth noble truth is the cure, the medicine, what we need to do. So the right view is to understand that, clearly understand that life is bringing me suffering. Okay, 1 minute it's up, next minute it's down. So when we follow the Eightfold Path, we're trying to stop this roller coaster. You know, we're on this roller coaster, we're shooting up, we're shooting down, we're going around in circles. So we're trying to flatten that out. And the Eightfold Path is a way of helping us to flatten that out. Of course, we're going to have good times and we're going to have not so good times. But if we live a skillful and wise life, then we're going to be able to flatten that out, which means we're going to be able to start to alleviate our suffering. So the first part of having this view is that we understand and implement the Four Noble Truths. It's no good just understanding. You know, it's no good just reading the book and being able to recite everything in there, but we don't change our life. So the starting point is to get the right view. So part of that is to understand and implement these Four Noble Truths. The next part of it really is to fully understand that our actions are going to have consequences. If we can understand that, then we're going to make sure that our actions are skillful and wise. So we understand whatever you do, there will be a consequence for that. We also need to understand that things are impermanent. If we don't understand impermanence, we hold on, we cling, we get attached to things. This brings us huge amount of suffering, and suffering for the other person. You know, if you're attached to somebody and they want to leave you, and you're so attached to them you won't let them, then of course you're bringing yourself suffering, and you're putting suffering onto them. Not only people, but our belongings are impermanent. Everything in this world is impermanent. And you know, if you just sit for a moment and just think about that, can you think of anything that is permanent? No, nothing is. Everything is changing. Our weather is changing. The planet is changing. The air we breathe, unfortunately, is changing. Everything around us is changing. All of our belongings, all of our friends and family, ourselves, everything is like a flowing river. So if we don't understand that all of this is impermanent, then we're going to try and stop that flowing river and hold on to everything. It causes so much suffering. So again, another part of this view is to really understand that things are impermanent. And if we understand that, then we're not going to hold on to things. When they're here, we're going to enjoy them. But knowing that they're not going to be here forever. But while they are here, I will enjoy. But when they go, I understand that they're going to go. So understanding impermanence is going to stop you getting attached to things and causing so much emotional suffering. So this is the view, this is the wise and skillful view that we should be looking at, understanding and implementing Four Noble Truths, understanding that my actions have consequences. What I do doesn't just affect me. What I do affects other people, and what other people do will affect me. So we need to understand that view. And we also need to understand the view that everything is impermanent. So we're off to a great start if we can just implement that and practice that. So remember, these Eightfold Path, these 8 different sections of the path are practices. They're not, again, intellectual things that you can just sit and recite like a parrot. They're things you actually have to do, implement into your life. So understand the Four Noble Truths and implement them. Understand cause and effect and implement it means that make sure your actions are skillful and wise. Understand impermanence and try to bring that into your life. So when you feel that you're starting to grasp and cling and get attached to something or somebody, remind yourself that it's impermanent. There's nothing here to hold on to. If you can do that, then most definitely you're having this skillful and wise view. And it's a great start down the path. Now, this path isn't that we do number 1 and then number 2, number 3, number 4, all the way up to number 8. It isn't like that. It isn't a linear path. We have to do them all together. But of course we have to start somewhere, so we're starting with view. But it isn't like we get the view right and now we can go on to our intention. We have to do all 8 of them. They have to become a part of our life. So remember, this isn't a path that has a destination. It's not like we get to number 8 and yay, I've reached the end. Because we have to constantly keep doing this, keep checking that we're on this Eightfold Path, keep tweaking and changing. So it's a journey. It most definitely isn't a destination. But if you can get the right view, then most definitely you're on the right journey. So the second part I want to talk about today is having skillful and wise intentions. So intentions are so important, and you know, a lot of the time we start things and we're unsure of our intention. we're not really sure of, why I'm doing it, but I'm doing it. So if we don't have an intention, it's like we can quite easily fall off this path. The intention is just like having boundaries, and we try to keep ourselves within these boundaries. If we don't have anything, we don't even know why we're doing it, or we don't know what changes we're looking for, then it's so easy to just start going off the path and in the wrong direction. So we need to be setting ourselves intentions. So in Buddhism, we talk about 3 different types of intention. The first intention is the intention to let go. So let go of our attachment. Let go of our misunderstanding of things. Let go of our selfish desires. We need to understand that all those things that I'm holding on to, all of those biases from the past, all of my unhelpful and unskillful habits, all of these things that I'm holding on to is going to hold me back and going to cause me to suffer. So we need to start letting go. Of course, we can't do it all at once. It's not like, wow, I'll let go of the whole thing. But we need to slowly start to be letting go. So it means that we need to be looking at our biases. What are these? Get to know them. Which ones are holding you back? Let them go. Look at your attachments and see how they're holding you back. Let them go. See how your selfish desires is making you a selfish and intolerant, unkind type of person. Let them go. So slowly work through all those things in your life that are holding you back. And we have many things, of course we do. And that's what I'm saying, that there is no destination here. It's a lifetime's journey, but we have to start. So once you start, and you start bit by bit chipping away at all those things that are holding you back at the moment, then you start to suffer less, you start to relax more, you start to become this more wise and skillful person. So the first intention is to have an intention to let these things go. And we should remind ourselves every morning, this is my intention, this is what I want to be doing. So the second part of intentions is to have the intention to have goodwill. So goodwill means that we want the best for everybody. Remember, this journey cannot be a selfish journey. It's not all about me. It has to be about everybody. We're all in this together. Each one of us are struggling. Each one of us are trying to find our way through all this maze that we find ourselves in. Each one of us is trying to, not suffer. Each one of us is trying to find how to survive. So we're all the same. So instead of having ill will means like having bad thoughts. I wish that would happen to them, and I want that to happen to them. You see, people can maybe understand when you do actions of speech and actions of body that it's going to harm somebody. But a lot of people say to me, yeah, but it's only a thought in your head, so it's not really going to harm anybody. But remember, before we have any action, we always have a thought. First we think, then we act. So if we're having these thoughts, we're planting the seed, we're putting in the potential to actually do that bad act. But it's not just about that. When we have these negative thoughts in our mind, then it starts to pollute, it starts to poison our minds. And you just got to sit down in meditation with a poisonous mind and just see how difficult it is to deal with such a poisonous mind. So we have to wish goodwill on people. Another aspect of this is that, when something happens to somebody, something good happened to somebody, we should rejoice in that. If somebody achieves something that we haven't achieved, but they've achieved, we should rejoice in that instead of being jealous about that, instead of getting angry about that, instead of saying harsh words to people. We should rejoice in other people's good. So that's our intention of goodwill. Our intention is that we don't have these negative, destructive thoughts about people. We understand that we're all in this together, and so we should be supporting each other. And if something good happens to somebody, great. I'm really happy for you. And not just say those words, I'm really happy for you. Mean it. I'm happy for you. The final part of this skillful and wise intention is harmlessness. We have an intention not to harm. So this is where empathy and compassion come in. That we really need to be compassionate. And again, it goes back to the point that we're all in this together. That everybody wants to have a peaceful mind and a happy life, and they don't want to suffer. So then, if we're harming people, we're adding to their suffering. We are certainly not adding to their peaceful mind and happiness. So we need to understand that everybody wants to have this calm, peaceful mind, and they don't want to suffer. So I'm not going to add to their suffering. I'm not going to add to my suffering, and I'm not going to add to their suffering. So I have the intention not to harm anybody, not to knowingly harm anybody. Sometimes unwittingly we say or do things that upset people. You know, there's not a lot we can do about that. If it happens, we need to apologize. But I'm talking about intentionally harm people. So we should have this intention that I don't want to harm people. So the skillful and wise intention is letting go of all the things that are causing harm, having goodwill towards everybody, and not harming people. These are my intentions. If you have those intentions, then you have wise and skillful intentions. So these are the first two aspects of the Eightfold Path.